Hello, and if you're watching this video, it's because you have signed up to be a referee or a scorekeeper for this year's Volleython. And I just want to start off by saying that we really appreciate you volunteering. It's a worthwhile ministry, at least we think so, and it'll really help us out throughout the day. And this video is just to help you out, get you a little bit acclimated as to what you'll be expecting throughout the day, what you can expect to wear, your schedule for the day, some of the rules and the regulations, and just things like that. So, first of all, let's start out with what to wear. What to wear that day, we like our referees and our scorekeepers to wear khaki pants, a referee shirt if you have it. If not, go ahead and wear a black shirt. That will be fine. And comfortable shoes will probably be something you are really going to want to wear. You'll be on your feet for long periods of time during the day. The feet really start to hurt by the end of the day if you got some shoes that aren't very comfortable. For the schedule of the day, please arrive by 8:45 a.m. to the Honeynegan Dome. Check in at the registration table right when you get in. The registration personnel will give you a lunch ticket. Keep that ticket in your pocket. Don't lose it. That will be your key to go ahead and get yourself some pizza in the middle of the day. It'll be a long day, so you will get hungry by the end of the day, so make sure you keep a hold of that ticket. Find out what court you're going to be on. This will be your court for the day. You and your scorekeeper will be on that court for pretty much the entire day until that court is no longer in use. So find out where your court is, get acclimated with it, but then be sure that you are at the ref and scorekeeper meeting by 9:30 a.m. That is very important that you're there. I put out some very important information for the day. So just make sure that whatever you do from 8:45 on, by 9:30 a.m., you are in that ref and scorekeeper meeting. Each game is going to be 16 minutes long with a 4-minute intermission. Basically, this adds up to one 2-hour block at the beginning of the day, and then there'll be a preaching session. And then there'll be another 2-hour block of time the second half of the day, and then that'll start dwindling down as teams fall out of the round-robin tournament, and right before there's another preaching session right before the day ends and the award ceremony begins. So that's pretty much a schedule for the day. So now to kind of help you out maybe with some court dimensions, for those of you who've played volleyball before, as you arrive you'll start to notice that our courts are a little smaller. A normal volleyball court is 60 feet by 30 feet. Our volleyball court is 50 feet by 26 feet. Now, it doesn't really make much of a difference to the kids that are participating. They don't really even notice. But what it really does is it limits the amount of space between the courts. Players and coaches are to be standing at the sidelines of their court, and spectators are to be in the stand. Please try to limit the amount of people between the courts. It's just going to get confusing for you and your scorekeeper, and it really starts to muddle up when balls start flying around and there get to be extra kids there. So that being said, if a ball's hit into an adjacent court, do not stop play. Just kick the ball off your court and keep playing. Now, I know that seems as though it may be a little bit dangerous, but we've never had a problem with it before. And as long as the kids, because of the smaller court dimensions, as long as the kids don't start launching the ball over the nets, when it's somebody else's serve or there's a side out or something along those lines, they just gently roll the ball under the net, everything should be fine. But we really need your help in enforcing that. If a team starts getting out of hand and it's more than just a kid forgetting or making an oops, start giving them a warning. And after their first warning, you can start taking off points for that because that really starts to be a distraction. And it can be a stalling tactic as well if they're starting to launch it onto other courts and you have to start running after it. So that kind of segues really well into rules of play. So starting out, referees and scorekeepers, this is really important for you. At the beginning of the game, each team's going to arrive at the court with their coach or their adult leader. Each team must have at least 6 players, 2 of which must be girls. If this isn't possible for some reason, I will issue them an exemption card that they're going to need to present you upon their arrival to the court, or they have not been found to be exempt, and they will have to come get that exemption card for me before they can start to play. If a team is short a girl due to injury or lack of players, they cannot replace her with a boy. She must be replaced with another girl or not replaced at all, meaning that they will have to play with 5 or less people. Scorekeeper, you will immediately then identify which side of the court each team will play on. This is your decision and should line up with your scorecard. So if you tell Team 1 to be on the left side of the court and Team 2 to be on the right side, then make sure that you're standing so that your scorecard lines up with that. So that on the left side of your scorecard is Team 1 and the right side is Team 2. The coin toss will then immediately take place with the team captains. At this point, the teams can begin warming up, and when the PA announces that play has begun, if one of the teams don't have their full amount of players, then 1 point will be awarded to the opposing team every 15 seconds. This will continue for 2 minutes, until at which point the game is forfeited. From this point on, simply listen to the PA recordings as it will prompt you minute by minute, until eventually stating that the game will begin now. When you hear this game will begin now, at this point the ball must be immediately served and the 16-minute game will begin. Ensure from this point on the ball is served quickly. The teams don't need to wait on you to tell them to serve the ball each time. Again, this is different from regular volleyball, but this will avoid stalling and it'll keep the game flowing very nicely. So during the game, first, let's just give some general rules. Each team has a 1-minute timeout that they're allowed to take during the game. However, they can only take the timeout before the 2-minute warning. As the game begins to progress, the PA system will be silent until you hit the 2-minute warning, in which you will hear the voice on the PA system say 2-minute warning, 2-minute warning. At that point, the coach cannot take their 1-minute timeout for obvious reasons, because we don't want them using 1 minute of the 2 minutes left to stall and help them to win the game and get an unfair advantage. Next is a ceiling rule. This seems to happen every once in a while, especially with younger kids and kids that may not be very experienced with volleyball. They seem to kind of just hit the ball and it goes wherever. They don't even really know where it's going. It goes all over the place. Sometimes it goes straight up and hits the ceiling. If the ball hits the ceiling or anything suspended from the ceiling, i.e. the hanging down lights from the ceiling or a rafter or something along those lines, if the ball hits the ceiling or anything suspended from the ceiling in the flow of play, and they've only hit it twice and they hit it straight up in the air and it hits a light and it comes back down on their side, if they still have a third hit left, they can still continue to hit that over. Hitting the ceiling does not count as one of their 3 hits. But the ball has hit the ceiling or anything suspended from the ceiling and goes over the net, the ball is dead and the point is awarded to the other team. Underhanded, open hand hits are allowed as long as the ball is not caught or thrown. Use your best judgment in this, call it the same for everyone, and you'll be just fine. The plane of the net cannot be broken, either above or below, under any circumstances, either with a foot, under the net, or a follow-through while hitting over the net. Essentially what we're trying to do with this, I know again this is different than regular volleyball, but what we are trying to do is not to eliminate spiking. Spiking is fine, that's part of volleyball. But what we want to do is keep them away from the net as much as possible so that you don't have some 6'10" senior spiking in the face of a 4'0" girl who's in 7th grade. This is player safety. So just please ensure that this is called. We're not eliminating spiking, we're just eliminating that big, long follow-through that breaks the plane of the net. If it happens, it's a violation. A point is just awarded to the other team. So now let's talk about the rotation. Again, this is different than normal volleyball. When the team rotates, they must enter in from the top left. They're not entering into the server position. Now, as you see in this diagram, they will enter in from the front left, rotate around until they would either exit bottom left, or they would just continue to rotate back to position number 1. This helps to avoid subs for servers only. You get some dynamite server out there, they could serve forever, and you get them right back out, and you can put them right back in as a server again. We're trying to eliminate that unfair advantage if it's there. Also ensure that when a team is rotating, they do not rotate so that there's no longer 2 girls on the court. If they have 2 girls, those 2 girls have to be on the court at all times at a minimum. There can be more than 2 girls, but not less, without an exemption card signed by myself. If there's an injury or for some reason a girl from a team must leave, that girl may not be replaced by a guy. They must either receive an exemption card to play with 5 or find an extra girl from another team. They do not need to find that replacement during a game, nor do they need an exemption card during a game. So if they have 2 girls, one girl gets hurt in the middle of the game, they do not have to stop and go get an exemption card just to finish their game. They can wait until the 4-minute intermission between the current and the following games. The ball is in if it hits any portion of the boundary line. That is considered in. All it needs is a piece of that line, as you can see in the diagram provided. So now let's talk about serving. The ball is allowed to hit the net on a serve. However, you cannot spike a serve. If I was to serve the ball and I just am barely getting over the net, like sometimes that their serve is like a set to some of these big tall guys on the other team. That guy cannot spike that person's serve. You can block a serve. You say, well, what's the difference? The difference is essentially whether your arms are going forward or whether they're just going straight up. No individual can serve more than 5 individual serves. Basically, they can't serve more than 5 points in a row. If this happens, the serving team retains the serve, yet rotates the current server out of their position. So just because you get 5 points in a row, the team doesn't necessarily get hurt by that. You can still keep your serve. That individual server needs to not serve anymore, and the team just needs to rotate. So now let's talk about scoring. At the Volleython, we use rally scoring, which means that every dead ball results in a point. It may be helpful to stand at the net with the team aligned with your scorecard, as I mentioned earlier. Scorekeeper. Just remember that your main job is to keep score. Everything else is secondary. If nothing else, you just need to get the score right. Try to stay focused on the game and the score. I know that you might have buddies there. You might have people coming up to you wanting to talk and whatever. You don't need to really talk to anybody during the game if you don't want to, if you don't feel comfortable doing so. Your main goal is to keep score. And I really need to make sure, and we really need to ensure, that the integrity of the score is kept correct as best as possible. So as you see by this diagram here, we have the scorecard. As you receive your scorecard at the beginning of the game, you'll notice that the top portion here will be filled in for you. As it goes on, as you find out which teams are on your court, you can fill these in as possible. And essentially, as you can see here, you have 2 blocks of numbers here, 1 through whatever, and you can do whichever. Now here, as you can see, I have them essentially every time there's a point, it would be that this scorekeeper has just marked them off with a line. You can circle them, you can mark them off with a line, you can X them out. Just so that you are able to know that at the end of the game, and you can see by this scorecard, it's a score of 3-2. They had a whopping 3-2 score. At the end of this game, this team won 3-2. And then you would just put that corresponding score at the top. It's not necessary to win by 2 points. Whomever is ahead at the end of the time wins. If there's a volley taking place when the game ends, allow the volley to continue as that point will count. If that volley ties the game, then another volley is going to take place for a team to win by 1 point. You have a 4-minute intermission. We may just have to take advantage of that. End of game. The scorekeeper must announce the winner at the end of the game. Go to the middle of the court and announce the winner and the score. So for this scorecard, you would walk into the middle of the court and you would say, Team such and such won by a score of 3-2. This will essentially assist in alleviating any issues immediately. However, overall, your scorecard is the one that I will use, not the coach's scorecard. If it comes down to a discrepancy, I have your back. You are my volunteer, and I cherish that, and I really do appreciate that. And so whatever your scorecard says, I will back you up in that. Referee and scorekeeper will each award a sportsmanship point at the end of each game to the team they feel had the best sportsmanship. You can just simply place an X next to the team that you felt had the best sportsmanship during that game. If neither team is deemed worthy of a sportsmanship point, then please annotate that in your card and still turn it in. Now, usually there's at least one. We have good kids coming to this. There may be one, and he may ruin it for his whole team, but usually there's at least one team that can at least get a point. But ensure that you're not giving The sportsmanship award is a consolation prize. That's not what it's meant for. It doesn't necessarily go to the losing team. If the team that won had the best sportsmanship, then allow them to get that point. Now, let me just make a little rebuttal here on the sportsmanship part of it. The sportsmanship award does not go to also the team that was the quietest. Just because a team is cheering for points or getting excited, or we want the kids to get excited. We want the kids to cheer. Cheering and whatnot, there's a difference between that and being a bad sport. And they're cheering to show up the other team, then obviously that's not good. But if they're just cheering their own team on, just because one team is loud and one team doesn't want to say anything, that doesn't necessarily mean that the team that doesn't say anything is a better sport. It just means that they're quieter. So just use your best judgment in that. Be discerning and ensure that you're giving it to whoever is the best sport. So as we're rounding out this training video here, we'll look at the behavior of players. Players do not need to have interaction with you, the ref or the scorekeeper, really at all. Now, we don't want you guys to be a jerk, but you also don't need to get yelled at. You also don't need to be questioned on every play by the teenagers. If they ask you a question or something, if you want to answer it, then answer it. Coaches can question you, albeit respectfully. You simply just need to politely answer their question or the concern and move on. Now, they're the coach, and they have the right to question you. But if you feel as though this is becoming a stall tactic, tell the coach that you can just discuss this after the game, right? And politely and professionally. Now, there is no foul language allowed at the Volleython for any circumstance, under any reason. If there is a problem with the player, simply tell his coach to get him in line and instruct the teenager that the next infraction will result in being kicked out of the game. That is their warning. If it continues to be a problem, kick him out of the game. Now, again, you want to use discernment in starting to kick people out of games. We don't want to kick somebody out for nothing. However, if it's a big enough issue, we might kick them out of the entire tournament. But I will hear about it. I will find out about it, and we will take care of it. We take the behavior very seriously. Now, in my years of being at the Volleython, I have never seen this be a problem, and I don't anticipate it being a problem this year either. It just isn't a problem. Overall, we just want you to have a good time. We want you to smile, be professional, and just don't let things bother you too much. This is for the kids, and my assumption is that you're volunteering because you love the Lord, you love the teenagers that are from your church and teenagers in general, and you want to serve the Lord, and you want to be a blessing to these teenagers. So let's be that. Let's keep our testimony while we're at the Volleython this year. Let's ensure that we all have a good time. Let's remember that this is essentially an evangelistic meeting disguised as a volleyball tournament. And we really, really want these kids to come away, number one, with salvation. I guess number two would be assurance of salvation. But thirdly, we want them to come away loving God maybe a little bit more than they did when they came. And if they have a bunch of adults who act like they don't want to be there, I don't really think that gives off a good message to them about what a Christian should exude in their life. So I'm sure you're going to have other questions, and that's fine, and that's really good, actually. If you have any other questions before the Volleython begins, you can email me at alan.harrell@yahoo.com. You can call me at area code 815-978-0779, and let me know, and I'll answer any questions that you may have that could come up between now and the Volleython. But inevitably, there's going to be times during the day that you're just not going to know what to do. Listen, before I was in charge of the Volleython, I was a ref, a scorekeeper, and what do I do in this situation? In that situation, make a ruling and go from there. I'm not expecting you to be referee of the year. I'm expecting you to serve the Lord. If you get a call wrong, hey, you get a call wrong. We understand it, and it'll be fine, and go with it. Now, again, I really, really appreciate everything that you're giving up to be here for the Volleython, and we are really looking forward to having you and your teenagers and your church there. Please, if you have, again, any questions, please just give me a call, and thank you again so much for giving up your time. I really appreciate it, and it's a real blessing. Thank you.